Here's how to get the highest quality, best looking footage out of your YouTube videos. The first thing you want to do is make sure that your camera is in video mode. For me on this Sony camera, it is just turning the dial on the top to the camera. Once we have the camera in video mode, we want to make sure that it is set to manual exposure. Again, on this camera, which is an A7IV, I'm going to set the top dial to manual. But also in the menu, I'm going to come to shooting mode and make sure the exposure type is set to the PASM mode, and then make sure the dial is still on manual for manual exposure. That way we can control all the settings that we need. Next, we're going to set our resolution and frame rate. You want to come in and select your 4K recording to give you the highest resolution. For this camera, I'm going to select XAVCS because that codec is the best in terms of trade-off between size and compatibility with my computer. Then for frame rate, we're going to choose 24 frames per second. Then we also want to make sure that we select the best bitrate for our camera, which is basically the amount of information that your camera is capturing for your image. If you have a newer camera and your camera supports 10 bit, you want to go ahead and select that. Or if you do have an older camera and it is 8-bit, you just want to make sure that you're shooting in the highest megabits per second, because if you do need to color grade the image, which most of us would like to, you want to make sure that you have enough information that your image doesn't break apart. Moving on to our exposure settings, we want to set our shutter speed. If you have any understanding for the exposure triangle, you know that you want to double your shutter speed or get as close to it as possible. So if we're shooting 24 frames per second, double that is 48. If you don't have 48 on your camera, then you want to get as close to it, which for most cameras is going to be 1/50 for your shutter speed. Aperture is something that you're going to play around with depending on the look that you're going for and how much of your background you want to have in focus. If you want to achieve that super blurry background, then you want to go maybe as low as your lens can possibly go. This particular shot here, I'm shooting at f1.8. I think anything between 1.8 and 4 is good for these type of YouTube videos, with about f2 to 2.8 being the sweet spot. Note on picture profile, this is not necessary, but if you do have a newer camera that supports 10-bit shooting, I think you should go ahead and shoot in log, because it is going to give you the best dynamic range out of your camera. And with these newer 10-bit cameras, it is super easy to grade in post and get your image out, even for simple YouTube videos like this. But again, if you have an older camera that supports 8-bit, then I'd recommend either no picture profile or something like this Sony HLG, which used to be one of my favorites. Last thing in our exposure triangle is going to be our ISO. It is kind of related to your picture profile though, because you want to shoot at whatever the native ISO is for your camera. So I'll put a graphic up here on the screen just for the cameras that I shoot with or I am familiar with in the Sony family. But for example, if it is that I'm shooting in log, my A7IV or my A7S3 has a base ISO of 640 and 800. But if you're shooting in a different profile like the HLG or no profile like I was talking about before, then your base ISO is more than likely going to be something as low as it can go, like 80 or 100. You want to make sure that you stay in focus while you're shooting your videos, so you're going to set the camera to continuous autofocus. A lot of cameras now have face or eye priority, and you could see the little box that is wrapped around my eye making me know that I am in focus. So you want to turn that on if you have it. And then for my focus mode, I just set it to wide, because again, the autofocus on these cameras are so good that it's going to lock onto my eye or my face and make sure that I'm in focus even with a shallow depth of field like this, and if I'm moving back and forth. We're almost halfway done, but I want to take a quick note to mention Skillshare. Even though this is not a sponsored post, I do use Skillshare routinely to go through some of these courses to better my YouTube journey. Everything from this course from MKBHD, which runs through from one of the best YouTubers of all time, on how to go from start to finish on how he creates videos, to documentary stuff, to how to create more cinematic videos. Skillshare is an invaluable source to me continuing to learn how to make and get better at videos, and I think it would be great for you too. So click the link down below to get 1 free month off of Skillshare, and it's links like these that help me to create more videos like this without any cost to you. Alright, next up, audio settings. This is just as important as your video. In camera, what I will do a lot of times is I'll take a microphone and I'll get it as close to me as possible, and then use an extension cord that I have from Amazon, links down below to that. Plug it into the camera, and then my record volume, depending on the microphone, is usually set somewhere between 17 and 15. You can also use headphones. Most cameras have a headphone jack for you to listen back to your audio. What you want to see is that your levels are peaking somewhere between -12 and -6 to make sure that it's not coming in too hot or too low. And then to make sure that I am exposed correctly, I don't always have a monitor, but what I do is that I use the zebras in my camera. I have 2 custom zebra settings here, one for my highlights and then one for my skin tone. For a darker skin tone like mine, I think around 45 is where you want to be. For other people with lighter skin tones, maybe around 50 is a setting on the zebras that you want to do. And then you want to just dial the light back until it is that you start to see zebras on the face. That's going to tell you to have the right amount of light on your face. Okay, next up to making our image look really good is going to be our white balance. You don't want to be in auto white balance. You want to set your white balance manually. For me, a lot of times I'm using a gray card, or if you don't have a gray card, you can set it manually by what I call using the different extremes of white balance, where it is that you just turn the dial until it goes all the way to extreme and then it comes back around. Usually you want to see making sure that your whites actually look white. That will actually get you the most natural skin tone for your white balance. Link to a video up here on how to set a custom white balance on your Sony camera. And then as I mentioned there, I don't have a dedicated monitor, but if you want to see how to turn your phone into a dedicated monitor for your camera, and that way you can expose with things like fast color and waveforms and all that, go ahead and click this video right here, and I'll see you over there in the next one. Big up yourself. Peace.